And we're on.
I always do the head thing midway, and like I
think
don't know.
I adopted like the head thing from you. Just like doing it. It's like, all right, we're waiting. I see Tom is in the chat. Hey Tom, I think he's still there. He was
I
there
hope
before.
so. Hi Tom. Tom beat us, which reminded me of my lack of timeliness.
Tom was on time. We were not.
My bad.
Okay.
No.
It's literally us. Every time.
It's me 9 out of 10 times, and then Onimaro 1 out of 10
comment.
times.
Okay, so let's see. Let's wait for a few more people to get on, and then we will officially start. In the meantime, how's everyone's day?
Pretty good. I got some breakfast at one of my favorite breakfast places this morning, so that was good.
That's awesome. What is your go-to breakfast meal of choice?
So I'm vegetarian, so I can't do too much.
Okay.
But the one thing that I always get from the place I go to is scrambled eggs, really good potatoes, and toast with a good jam. That's my go-to.
That's really good. I was raised vegetarian and unfortunately folded in my adult life, but I understand the struggle of vegetarian breakfast. But one of the places by me has a really good it's called the Barking Chihuahua, and it's just the best Mexican breakfast burrito with just eggs and salsa and anything you could want. So that's still my go-to, but I feel you. It's tough. It's tough to have good vegetarian breakfast options.
Yeah, they've been pretty good at doing vegetarian patties and stuff from stores, but that's mostly all you can really find is at a store. They don't really have that at restaurants.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
I've been eating healthy for the past month, and then today I just treated myself and actually bought myself breakfast. It was a tough choice. I was like, bacon, egg, and cheese. I need it. But real quick chat for those that are on. How's our audio? Is everyone sounds okay? Just want to make sure before we actually start, and then I find out that my audio's bad. So
I am biased, but I think your audio sounds good.
Thank you. I appreciate it. All right, so let's just get into it. Okay. So without further ado. Hello, and welcome to the Just Weebs podcast. I'm your host, Onimaru, and I'm here today with Shocking and our special guest, Colleen from Colleen's Manga Rex, that we've invited on to discuss Shojo and Josei and everything around that today. Because, we are kind of really into Shojo and Josei, and we came across Colleen's channel. We checked out some of her videos, and we thought we could have some really interesting discussions about it. Because for a while now, we've noticed that there haven't been a lot of Shojo or Josei getting any anime. Yeah. Also, Colleen is our first guest of season 2, so that's awesome. We're glad to have you.
Oh, well, thank you.
And also special thanks to Shaw for reaching out and getting her on.
No, I'm so excited. I feel like I've seen you around in both on Twitter and on YouTube. And I'm like, you know what? This is a topic that we actually thought of. And we're like, this is actually the perfect opportunity. And your content has been really interesting. It's a total breath of fresh air. I love the combination of meme referencing thumbnails. Of course the classic is this is Shojo with the bird, the butterfly. I saw that and I was like, okay, we have the perfect guest. This is awesome. So I'm super excited. And I'm so thankful you could join us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah. So I guess this is kind of our go-to start, but I'm how did you get into anime? What's your origin story? What is the Colleen lore?
The Colleen lore. Yeah, so I was into the cartoons that everyone knew growing up. So Pokemon, Digimon, Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yeah.
And then Card Captors was what really hooked me, but I still didn't really know it was anime.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a friend around 5th or 6th grade. I joined this gymnastics class, and this random girl was like, "Oh my gosh, you like card captors? I like card captors. Have you ever heard of Fruits Basket?" And I was like, "Oh, what's this?" So me and her watched the entire, however many episodes it was from 2001. And yeah, ever since then, I was super into any anime. I was like trying to find manga at the library all the time. Or on High School Host Club was like the second thing that I was really, really into. And then from there, it just kind of like the tumble of just getting into
down
it
the
more
rabbit
and more.
hole.
Yeah.
That's like
That's
the
awesome.
OG Shoujo journey with like
Yeah.
Fruits Basket and Card Captors. Did you watch Card Captors with the English dub on like on, I don't know, the
Toonami.
network? Yeah.
Was it Toonami?
Yeah,
I
it was
thought
on
it was
Toonami.
4Kids for
It
some
was,
reason.
I think it
It
was
might have been
like
both.
4Kids or WB or one of those.
Yeah.
Maybe it was WB. Yeah, I watched it in dub. I was like Card Captors and Hamtaro. I watched both of them in like
Hamtaro.
English dub.
Yeah.
But yeah, I never watched it. I never watched it in the Japanese, the original Japanese. I only watched it in English. So I don't even know what the original Japanese sounds like.
I had a similar journey because my best friend and I would be watching like Sailor Moon, and then Card Captors would come on, and it's like you're at that age where you don't really know the difference between like anime and cartoons that happen to be on the same channel, which is kind of cool. Like when you're growing up and looking back, it's like, oh, these like actually just feel the same. But then her older sister was like, I guess kind of like a weeb elitist, and she's like, you know, telling us 7-year-olds like, you need to watch it in the sub. So I had the sub versus dub debate like from first grade, and we went to the VHS store and we got Card Captor Soccer on with subtitles for like 4 episodes. So I know what you mean exactly.
Wow.
I remember that they called Tomoya Madison. That was her dub name is Madison.
When I found the manga, when I found the manga and I found out their Japanese names, I was like, who are these people?
Yeah, it's like who is this? Where's Madison?
Yeah.
That's actually really interesting because I was like recently, now and again, the Card Captors, like the original, well, not the original, but the English dub song that they had, that the chorus was like, Card Captors. Like, it'll just come back in my head and I'll start singing it. And the other day I was doing that. And then I got into like, it led to an in-depth conversation with my wife about like Card Captors sub versus dub differences. And she's just like, no. So the reason why in America they tried to like change it to Card Captors is because they were trying to make Shaoran the protagonist and make it seem like he was a protagonist and not Sakura. And they were trying to like shove her to the side. But then they were trying to market it that way. And then later they found out they couldn't fully do that because she was so entrenched in the whole show. So they kind of failed at it and it kind of fizzled out. So
yeah, I think I remember hearing that somewhere too. Like I watched a YouTube video where someone brought that up and I was like, I never realized that. But like now that I think of it, yeah, they introduced Shaoran a little earlier than he was actually introduced in the series or something like that. So
yeah, I think there's like a full like 8 episodes before he shows up, and they just start with episode like 9. It's so funny. And then I think I saw that same YouTube video, and I think they also like they had like a whole like gay subplot with her brother, and I forget his name, like the guy she has a crush on for like half the show, who's like her older
Yukito?
Yukito, I think so. Yeah, Yukito. Like they just like completely like cut that out. They just tried to cut that out in the dub, and it's so funny how like, you know, we always have like the sub versus dub like discussion sometimes, but this is like a very like clear-cut case of like the dub fundamentally changed the series. Like they just up and changed everything. Not everything, but a lot. So it's funny like looking back on that, but I am glad to have found another Card Captor among us. I've been trying to shill that for a while, but yeah, that's cool. That's cool to hear. So you've essentially been down the pipeline for a while. So you're kind of an expert. If you don't want to call yourself an expert, I'll call you an expert. So like kind of an expert in the sphere.
Sure. If you want to call me that, I wouldn't say I am. I was out for a while, so
I will dub you an expert.
It's fair to say you have a lot of experience with, you know,
I've been around the block.
Is it too early to ask this? But do you prefer anime or manga as a medium. And I would lean towards manga since your channel has manga in it. But
Yeah. I think lately, definitely because of like the fall off of shoujo, I would say I definitely lean more towards manga because I have more options in what I can consume. And when it comes to anime, it's kind of harder because it's like, okay, you either have a lot of battle action series, a lot of like isekai series, sci-fi series, and I'm not like as into that genre in general. So I have more options when it comes to manga, even if it isn't shoujo. Like, there's a lot more slice of life series that I like to read. There's a lot more like drama series that I like to read in that medium. So I would definitely say more manga lately.
okay.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think a lot of people end up loving the like having so many options with manga because I guess if you think about it, it's like if we get a season of anime, now we get like 50 anime a season, not like give or take, but it's kind of like, okay, those are your options, give or take. Like you can't really go outside that unless you go to older series, which is generally good, but it's kind of like limited choice. But with manga, you could just kind of like stumble upon a new series on a website and you're like, this is cool. I had no idea this existed. And now I have like 50 chapters of this to read. And that's just, that's my next couple days or week, So I totally feel that. Do you think that, do you think if there were, I guess we did kind of answer that. It's like, because like you're more interested, I'm guessing, in like slice of life series. Are you also more interested in kind of like romance drama more so than like action and like the sci-fi, isekai?
I would say I'm pretty much equal with, I like romance in a series. It doesn't always have to be the central theme. There's a lot of series that are my favorite that have like really good romance in it, but I think it's mostly because I'm very much into character works and romance tends to be more character focused.
Yeah.
And then I do like adventure and fantasy series a lot too. And it just kind of depends on how character focused they are. So like Yona of the Dawn is very character focused, which is why I like that one a lot.
Yes.
As
So
well
good.
as I used to be a Yona hater. I watched the anime. I did not like the anime at all. Yeah.
Actually,
and then
the anime got me hooked and got me to go to the manga. So
it's so funny because everyone says that. And I'm just like, oh yeah, I didn't like the anime. I was like bullied into reading the manga. And that's when I was like, oh, okay, this is actually really good. So I'll stop being a Yona hater now. But yeah, adventure, character work, romance, all of that, my jam.
That makes sense.
What are some of your favorite like adventure ones, for example?
Currently I'm really into Prince Freya, which is a pretty new series. I think it started in Japan in like 2018, 2019, and it got picked up last year by Viz. That one's pretty good. I would say it's very Game of Thrones-esque. High stakes, lots of twists. That one's really good. And then I'm reading Red River for the first time, which is like a very classic shoujo series back from like the 80s. And that one's really good too.
That one looks really cool too. So this is cool to hear. I will check out both these, but I think me and Onimaru, I won't fully speak for Onimaru because Onimaru has a lot of like secret anime experience that I'm not aware of. Because it's secret because you haven't filled out your MAL to completion. So I'll just mention a series and you'll be like, oh yeah, I watched that. And I'm like, okay, well, I didn't know that. So
I filled it out recently, I think. Or no, there's missing a lot. Actually, you're right.
Yeah. So latent, hidden anime and manga knowledge. But I'd say that like, we are all of like, I'm assuming if we've seen Cardcaptor Sakura on WB, we're kind of from the same time. So we've all been around the block a bit. And I think we're all kind of familiar with the idea of like having seen a couple shoujo series. We're really familiar with like the aesthetic, the story, the different type of like storytelling from like shonen or seinen series. Like we're aware of like the like tropes that go along with it. Why do you think that there's kind of like a disconnect between like your average anime fan and like picking up kind of like shoujo series? There's like that weird kind of divide that I see with a lot of very specific type of series from like, sports anime, shoujo and like romance series, like what do you think is like building up that wall between the casual viewer and like accessing this genre that, well, or not genre, but like this demographic of series that like obviously bring a lot to the table, but it just seems like there's some kind of disconnect?
Well, I would say the biggest reason does tend to be sexism. Okay. It does tend to be the like, oh, girly stuff, female protagonist, can't relate. I don't like that. And then, I mean, even if it's not something that like comes to your mind at first, it could just be like a little thing in the back of your mind that's just like, oh, I see a girl, this isn't going to be for me. I only like things I can relate to. Other than that, I would say a lot of it can also be the fandom. I feel like the fan discourse and how people talk about it already gets other people to talk about it in that same way without knowing much. So it's just kind of like a trickle down. Someone is like, oh, shoujo, all shoujo sucks. And then someone's like, oh, okay, this one person who I respect says that. So now I'm going to say that. And then, they've maybe read like 2 or 3, only seen like 2 or 3.
Yeah.
And then the third thing I think could just be that they're watching a lot of shoujo anime, or they've seen a lot of shoujo anime. And I would say the options when it comes to shoujo anime can be very limited.
Yeah.
And especially when it comes to how they're adapted.
Yeah.
There's just like way too many series that are really, really good manga, and then I watch the anime, and I can barely even watch the anime. So I think there's a lot of things that go into it, but those are what I would say the big 3 of that are.
The big 3.
The One Piece, Naruto, and Bleach.
Yeah.
One thing, speaking of like shoujo, that like people that only watch a few shoujo and kind of, haven't watched much and kind of make a judgment call. Me and Shaw brought up on our Fruits Basket pod. We asked if Fruits Basket itself was worthy to be considered the best shoujo of all time due to its near universal acclaim and actually complete adaptation.
Yeah.
Or is it a case of, people that haven't watched many shoujo, or maybe that's their first one, kind of herald it as like the best thing there ever is without, actually having done their homework or experienced other shoujo? What's your take on that?
I would definitely say it's like the seminal, I think is the word for that. The seminal shoujo work. It's one of them at the very least. I mean, even in Japan, Fruits Basket was super popular when it was releasing. I think it was, I saw an infographic. I think it was in the top 10 best-selling shoujo of all time. So it is like the shoujo still. I would say if we're going off of numbers, Boys Over Flowers is like technically the biggest shoujo that has ever came out of the demographic. But I know a lot of people have qualms about that series. I've never watched it. Yeah, I've never watched it or read it personally, but there is a lot of like they don't handle a lot of things well in it. But it's very like, it's not an age gap. It is a lot of like abuse. Not handling the wealth differences very well. I can't speak too much on it because I've never seen it in any capacity, but it's the most adapted shoujo series. It had like 6 or 7 dramas in like a bunch of different countries. I think a movie, the anime, and it got a season 2 for the manga as well. So very popular work.
That's one thing I didn't go with my gut instinct and shout. I love that show, but
Oh, really?
Have you seen it?
I watched it when I was a lot younger, so I wouldn't pick up on any of the things you mentioned because it was like a different phase. But I watched the whole anime, which wasn't adapted very well. It was actually like really poor quality, but I was still hooked on the show. And then I watched the Japanese live action adaptation, which was also done really well. I didn't watch the Taiwanese one or the other one, but
I heard the live action for that one is like really good, and that's probably the reason why it got so popular, is because everyone loved the live action so much.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously the manga was also really popular too, but I think that definitely helped get it to the popularity that it has now.
Yeah, no, I could see, because like I think the Japanese live action also had like a lot of superstars kind of in it, and like it just was really getting a lot of buzz at the time. So it was really good. So it was good minus the criticisms that I made.
Honestly, sometimes I feel like it's okay to still like stuff like that, because the drama is like the thing in the series that you watch it for. So like there can be some good to a series, even if it's like not the best things happening in it. Like, you're there for the drama, and if the drama is keeping you hooked, then it can still be good in that respect. So
like Fruits Basket is also guilty of its sus things as well. So
yeah, I think that kind of brings up an interesting point that I think I've found just in discourse in general, which, I mean, I think we've all seen discourse for better or worse. It's like, it seems like sometimes I think, like even with a series like this, we're talking about like the most like historically successful work. And it's always kind of like, these are the complaints people have had. But I find that like, sometimes I think Shojo and Josei are kind of held to like a higher standard where they kind of have to be like perfect. Otherwise there's like, it's always like, yeah, it's good, or it has this good element, but it has this going on. And then this going on, we could find in like almost every anime. Do you think that that's like something that also just like holds people back? Because maybe it's like, sometimes it can be really amplified in a way that like, if it was in another series, people wouldn't really bat an eye.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've come across a lot of complaints about Shoujo, having the age gap and having like the toxic male lead. And those are fair complaints. I'm not ever going to be like, no, you shouldn't complain about something like that. However, age gaps are a big issue, I would say, in a lot of Japanese media, and not just Shoujo and Josei. Especially, I think it's just not as prevalent in shonen, because the idea of an age gap is more like a feminine thing, where it's like, oh, a man who can like take care of you, provide for you. So I feel like in that respect, it's more of like the feminine thing of like idealizing that, when it's not actually something that you should want. So I think that's why it's more prevalent in Shoujo and Josei. However, it is, a big issue in general, in other series as well.
Because I remember back not too long ago when we had Scum's Wish and Domestic Girlfriend, everyone's favorite romance series. Both of those were airing at the same time, and both of them at some capacity had like a male student romantically involved with a teacher. And like, both of those series had enough going on that I think people were distracted from that. But when I was talking with like a lot of my friends about it, male and female alike, who had experienced like all different types of anime, like, I'm like, so are we going to not talk about how weird it is that this like teacher is preying on like a younger student? Like, and it was like a common thing. Like, he's either like 17 or 16, and she's at least 25. And that's something you'd see in Shoujo and see people complain about and be like, oh, age gap, it's kind of weird. But I'm like, what about the opposite? Like, I know it's cool when like, some guys like can have like, like fantasize about their teachers, but it's kind of like, what about when it's the opposite? Like, yeah, it's kind of weird on like both parts, but like, why aren't we kind of calling it out on this side as much? And, even to be fair to like, Domestic Girlfriend, there was enough to kind of talk about. Scum's Wish, same, like maybe people are kind of distracted, but even with like something that's like one of my favorite games, like Persona 5, like, one of the romantic options is your teacher. And it's like, where's the problematic age gap complaints there,
Yeah. See, I haven't seen either of those animes, but I've literally never seen anyone complain about age gaps in those. Like, for Fruits Basket, I do think Fruits Basket is kind of like, it shot itself in its foot with having the movie being like the central theme is the age gap. But you did see more people complaining about Akito and Shigure, or Kureno and Uotani. Like, you would hear more about that than like some of the other stuff happening in the show sometimes. So
Yeah.
yeah, I didn't even know that was a thing in Scum Swish and Domestic Girlfriend. So
I
Good
rest
for
my
you.
case. I rest my
Better not
case.
to check those out.
I know
You-
when to avoid certain things, and like
Yeah.
I see the picture, I'm just like, that's not gonna be for me.
Yeah, I think,
Yeah.
and like, it's unfortunate. I think Scum Swish had some interesting parts to it, but like, Scum Swish was all about calling out how all these different types of toxic relationships, and they don't call that out, which is why it's like interesting to me, because I'm like, the whole series is about this toxic side of romantic relationships, yet we get nothing because it's like presented as like a fetish. So
Yeah.
that's where I'm like, okay, kind of weird. Moving on to the next accessory of the episode, I guess. But
Yeah.
yeah, you could definitely just not really engage with Domestic Girlfriend in 2022. Don't need to go back to that.
I'll continue on my path of
Yeah.
not watching that show.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it's kind of an interesting but like an unfortunate dilemma that happens in the discourse. But I noticed that like with your channel, something I appreciate a lot is it's like I make a lot of like comparisons and connections to things, sometimes a bit too much, and it doesn't work. But I think you're doing a really great job of kind of saying like, if you like this very popular series, you will like this shoujo series. Are you like really interested in the idea of kind of like getting more people onto shoujo series and kind of showing how like there are very similar strengths amongst like various parts of the anime sphere or anime manga sphere? Sorry.
Yeah. Definitely. I think the best way to get people into media is to compare it to something they either already know or something they already like. There are downsides to that, and I have I've witnessed the downsides to that. I compared one of my favorite series was Queen's Quality.
Mm-hmm.
This really cool action supernatural shoujo manga, but I compared it to Jujutsu Kaisen.
Oh no.
And yeah, and a lot of people like really loved it. They started picking up the series because of it. But then I started seeing people be like, "Oh, it's the Jujutsu Kaisen of shoujo." And I'm like, I get the appeal of saying that, but seeing other people say that makes me feel more like you're not appreciating the series as
For
itself.
what it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
And rather just seeing it as, oh, here's a Jujutsu Kaisen, but like with a female protagonist. How cool is that? It's just like, no, it's very different.
Yeah.
It's just like an entry level to get you to read it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They take it a bit too literally.
Yeah.
It's crazy because like that's sometimes the only way. Like associations is really like how you get the attention to the work that you want people to read. So
exactly, which is why I do it, but at the same time, yeah, it can backfire a little bit.
Yeah, I feel for you because I've like, when you make that comparison and people are like, oh, it's literally like this, or it's like, oh, it doesn't have this one thing, and it's like, no, I'm saying they have similar attributes. They are not literally the same.
Yeah. I just put out one of my making the shonen jump to shoujo, which is like the
great
thing
title
that I do.
10 out of 10 title.
Thank you.
That's good.
I just put out my new video for that yesterday on YouTube, and I was like, this time I need to make sure everyone knows this is not a one-to-one comparison. This is just a way for you to find something that you liked in the other demographic and maybe go this way.
Yeah. It's a good way of covering yourself because that's the most important thing. It's like, hey, disclaimer, this is what I'm trying to do. Actually, speaking of which, I'm just curious, are there any shonen or seinen or just like non-shoujo josei that you enjoy? That you
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Currently, I'm reading Sakamoto Days, Spy Family, and Akane Banashi. I think that's how you say that one.
Okay.
Which is another Shonen Jump series that like is pretty new. They only have like 23 chapters out, but that's a really good one.
Super new.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's a Rakugo series, which is kind of like speaking comedy.
Yeah, like Rakugo the anime.
Yeah.
Have you seen that? Have you seen that one or read it? or both?
I haven't seen the anime yet. I started reading the manga and then I haven't gone back to it yet.
Okay.
But I did enjoy the first 2 chapters that I read.
Okay, yeah, because I've been trying to get Onimaru to watch Rakugo Shinju Descent. I
I've
think
heard
the
it's
full.
great.
Yeah, I think it's kind of It's probably like I'm not gonna make bold claims. It's really great. I'm not gonna go too crazy, but
I have it on the plan to watch. I swear. I actually found out yesterday that it's a Josei. I was looking up Josei that I've watched, and I found out that I actually haven't read as many as I thought or watched as many as I thought. I'm like, oh, hey, Rakugo's one. Okay, that's really high praise.
When it comes to Josei, it's very hard to like find anything. So
I actually pointed that out to my wife today. I'm like, I haven't read a lot of Josei. I'm like, you haven't? And then she started looking up Josei that she's read, and she's like, wait, I don't think I've read as many as I thought either.
yeah.
Like,
I feel like it's also tough to sometimes know what things are kind of like characterized or like grouped as, because sometimes I think like I had no idea that Wotakoi was a Josei because I just like saw it was online. I didn't even really know where it was published, and like I could see like it being targeted towards the female demographic, but I would have had no idea that it was like specifically in that camp. So
yeah.
I was talking with some friends and I'm like, I think it's like sometimes really just difficult to kind of like know what is categorized as what, especially when it's not always in like a physical magazine. Sometimes I think they're just like web magazines.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. What was I going to say? So what are your favorite like ongoing manga right now? If there's anything that like catches your eye, like anything that you're following. I know we were talking about this a bit. Chihayafuru just ended. Had a great ending. Yeah, are you like totally happy with the ending? I've seen some gripes from a certain side of the fan base that
certain subsect.
Certain subsect.
You're gonna get me canceled by that.
No,
I've been trying to be so
not comment on that spot. I'm here
and
to
not
ruin
even
that
like not comment because I'm very much everyone who knows me knows that I was very much into the Taichi Haya shipping camp. But I've been trying to be nice about
I think it's working. I think your attempts have come across very well.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I would say for the most part I am pretty much happy with how the series ended. I think she did a great job at ending the series in the best way she possibly could. I know that the series was supposed to end on volume 49. And then we got an announcement like 2 months before the last chapter was supposed to come out. And then they were like, oh, actually, there's going to be 3 more chapters. So I think it's clear that she was being rushed for time by possibly the editing staff. And they were like, all right, time's up. The series is like doing good. Let's end it on a high note. And she was like, okay, but I need a little bit more time because 49 volumes isn't going to be enough. I mean, there's like some criticisms here and there, but I don't think it affects my enjoyment overall of the entire story. So I'm happy with what I got.
I feel similarly. I have seen many manga end very poorly. I have an unfortunate track record of having like a new favorite manga before it ends and then it kind of crashes and burns. That's happened at least like 2 or 3 times. So I'm like, I've seen the depths, but I don't think the Chihayafuru ending is like close to that. I think it's really good too. But I also think I've seen interesting discourse on like people feel like sometimes the way it ended kind of like ruined their perspective of like everything because it makes them feel like they didn't interpret the series correctly. But I don't know. I've generally not found that to be the case too often with series ending. Like most of the times it kind of feels like this is just how it is, I guess, except for maybe Attack on Titan fans. Shout out to them. That's just its own can of worms, but I'm glad that you enjoyed it a lot. I'm glad to see that, like, I'd say 90% of people think it was a good ending. So
definitely a small amount of people who didn't like it.
As someone that actually hasn't read or watched it, for clarity's sake and non-spoiler, if you can, let me know. Like, what is the main thing that is pissing people off? Is it a love triangle? That's kind of what I heard, right?
Yeah, so with Chihaya Furu, it's a love triangle, but I wouldn't say it's in the way that people would typically think of a love triangle with. Because when you think of a love triangle, you think of like, oh, the one guy's like a jerk and the other guy's like the nice guy, and then one guy is always like doing the kabedan on the wall and like scaring boys off, and like the other guy tries to swoop in, and all that drama. But I don't think it's in that same way. It's very nuanced in how it handles that, and I feel like the reason so many people were upset is because of how nuanced the series is. It's very much showing you but not telling you the things that happen. So I feel like a lot of people, you can interpret things in different ways, and if you didn't interpret it the way that the author intended, you're going to think a different outcome happens. So I think that's why a lot of people were upset. They were interpreting things in a way that the author didn't mean for it to go that way, but because it's so open-ended, they were like, oh, it was supposed to go this way, why didn't you give me the way that I thought it was supposed to go? Even though there were many other people on the other side being like, oh, well, actually I interpret it this way. And they were like, oh no, you're wrong. That happened a lot.
Gotcha. And so I take it that this is one of the rare love triangles that Shaw is actually okay with.
I have lived through the Twilight days, and I have been through some love triangle wars. So I have some gripes with this love triangle, if only because I have some gripes with love triangles where it's like they're a close friend group, and then I don't want to go into spoilers. This love triangle does some things that I'm kind of bothered with love triangles, but it also does some things in a really realistic way that I actually give it a lot of credit for. So both sides. But I think it's really complicated, as Colleen said. I think it's kind of like, you're really invested in everyone. So I don't like when a show kind of like has a love triangle where you are naturally pit against a likable character because you like another one more. And that makes you root for them to be happy so much that you're kind of inherently rooting against someone else, which happens in sports anime anyway. But then it's like another layer of it because you have like, I want them to lose the card game and also the love triangle match. So it's like you kind of have both sides to it. But I think that kind of frustrates me. But I think the way they handle it is really well done. I have like my mini gripes, but for the sake of non-spoiling, I think they do a pretty good job. Definitely better than most other series with love triangles. So I'll give them that. But it's also like the characters are so good that you're just so invested in everyone's happiness that you're so like, you're so heated for it because you're like, I need everyone to be happy, but mostly my guy. I need him to be happy. And I don't think, and I got to give credit where credit is due. I don't think I've seen a love triangle come down to the wire where you don't know who will win until the final, the final stretch. Like it could have gone I think many people were like so surprised that's why they're also so upset because they're like, it could have gone either way. So people were definitely like, I thought I had it in the bag, but I guess not. And then that's just kind of it.
The other reason why a lot of people were upset because it was down to the wire. It could have gone either way. So when it ended, they were like, whoa, how did one chapter and it's like, no, you got to go back and you got to recontextualize everything now, which once again, it's very nuanced.
I think it will be an Onimaru favorite if you read, watch, and update your favorites. So
I will. I swear. Just for context, though, I only brought that up because Shaw. I was referencing our previous Fruits Basket pod where Shaw mentioned she really does not like love triangles, mainly because they're most of the time done unrealistically with ending amicably and one person just being cool and nicely bowing out for the other two to get together so they could all still remain friends. And she was like, no, that's bullshit.
That's my gripe is when you have a I'm going to use Toradora for an example because I feel like it's the most common. Have we all seen Toradora? If that's okay. So you haven't?
Oh, I have.
I thought so. I was like, I think you have. But
No, I have. Sorry.
But it's like, okay, so you got the close friend group. Everyone is friends. There's like, everyone has their feelings. And then you see one person be like, they'll be good together. I'm going to bow out and not fight. You see that happen. And then they still remain friends. That's what I get frustrated with, is when there's like, okay, we're just gonna pretend that my feelings like don't matter, and I'm just gonna suffer in silence, and we're gonna continue all being great friends. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I've seen love triangles in real life. It does not happen like that. So that's where I get frustrated, where I'm like, okay, this is like not meshing. But you know, I think you probably like Colleen probably knows it's like, okay, like this is what happens in Chihaya Furu though, which is why it works and doesn't. You know, you already know.
Yeah.
I cannot spoil, but yeah.
So speaking of that, are there any like common, maybe you consider overused tropes in shoujo or josei that you find annoying? Like any, even if it's small gripes, something like you kind of always see, and it's like, okay, guys, can we do something more? You know.
I'm gonna have to think about that. I mean, obviously, like the problematic stuff, like age gaps, annoy me because half the time, unless the story is like really, really good and it doesn't focus on the romance entirely, I'm like, okay, I can read through this because I'm invested in the story itself and not just reading about this 16-year-old girl getting with a grown-ass man.
Yeah.
Maybe like I'm not super against a love triangle, but it really depends. Like I'll still read a series if it has one, but it just really depends on how they handle it. I don't know, like tropes are just kind of like there to move a story along, so I never get too like annoyed with it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't get annoyed by things easily.
Okay,
oh, that's awesome.
Good. That's great.
That's awesome. That's really refreshing.
That's a good quality.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Okay, so that's good. Then speaking of one of your videos that you did, which I think is, I don't know if it was like a recent, like, well, no, it was a few months back, but the decline of shoujo anime. I checked that video out. I actually watched it with my wife. She like, I saw her relate so much to everything you were saying. It was great.
Oh, that's cool.
But speaking of that video, we were talking about like at the end that one of the other problems, and I want to see if you agree with this or your thoughts on this, with why a lot of these shoujos aren't getting picked up or josei for adaptations could be a marketing angle, which is a lot of these shonen or other types of shows are kind of more easy for these producers to pick up because they kind of know what they can sell in a more simplified way, whether it's stuff from the world, figurines, you know, and that's kind of like more overt and more apparent and easier to market. Whereas for a shoujo or josei, that kind of, for the most part, focuses on more like interior, like conflicts, relationships, drama, stuff like that. There's nothing readily apparent that they can just be like, okay, we can sell that, we can market that, because a lot of these adaptations are so heavily dependent on what you can kind of sell.
Yeah. I mean, there is that aspect. My only like I guess comeback, it's not really a comeback, but my only like argument back would be then I would think they would also be interested in doing the action and adventure shoujos then, but we haven't been getting those either. So like I mentioned, Queen's Quality, it's been going since 2015. It's like a really cool action supernatural series. I feel like they could market it pretty well if they wanted to, I guess. I don't know. Like I'm not an anime executive, an animation studio executive. I can't say exactly, but there's series like Queen's Quality, Prince Freya, which is another really good selling shoujo manga, as well as The King's Beast, and those all have like action elements, world building, characters that I feel like could be figures. There could be like little weapons that they could sell if they wanted to. Like I said, I'm not a marketing person. I'm just making stuff up. There is that aspect.
Yeah, and it wasn't completely meant to be like a defense of them.
Oh yeah, I know. Sorry.
It was just more like they could probably find something if they looked harder. Like we were talking recently about how they came out with the Nana figurines, like one of Hachi and Nana. I don't know if you've watched Nana, but they came out with those really cool figurines recently. Even though the show has been like done for like more than a decade, but it has such a big fan base, and we figured like, well, maybe it was because they kind of noticed like, hey, they're really stylish in the show. Maybe we could do some really awesome figurines, and that's probably why they did them. I don't know, but
yeah,
I feel like maybe they just need to try harder.
No, I do think that's part of it too. I feel like they see Shoujo, they see girl show, and they say, we don't know what girls like. Let's just here's a pillowcase. Like, I feel like they put a lot of barriers on themselves with what they can market to girls, because I do think the fact that we don't have any Yona figures, I think, is really crazy. The fact that there's no Hawk figure, I feel like that would be sold out in like 2 seconds.
Yeah, yes. I haven't even consumed the show in any capacity, and I'd go buy one just because.
I'm ready to pre-order. Like, I need it.
Whenever they want to do it.
Yeah, I read this interesting thread. Well, I saw someone on Twitter post this, and I'm not sure the accuracy or not, but they took a screenshot of like, according to AniList, every anime that came out over the past, like, I'll say 5 years, it might have been 10 years. Like, here's all the shoujo anime that came out, and then here's all the shonen anime that came out. And it's like probably more than twice as many shonen anime that came out. And it was like just really interesting to see the lack of like equity or remote kind of balance between the two. As we've discussed, like the content is there, the connection between like current trends, which is like a lot of fantasy series. It sounds like a lot of the series you mentioned have a fantasy aspect. So yeah, I see the connection between like the current isekai trend and then like these shoujo series that are like also fantasy action series. So it's weird that they don't bridge the gap. But in the replies, someone had this thread from a translator. I don't know who they are, but essentially they said that a lot of the kind of like unisex romance series like Kaguya, Nagatoro, Takagi-san, those are kind of like getting a lot more attention off of like traditional shoujo romances. And they think that might be where they're putting more of their eggs in that basket, which I thought was interesting, especially because the follow-up was essentially, I'm reading this verbatim, as plenty of girls watch those shows, while a ridiculously small number of male viewers enjoy shoujo, it is simply more profitable to invest in that big intersection of targets for planning, music, like whatever. So it does come down. The guys need to watch the shoujo. Yeah.
I do think that is a lot of the issue is girls, non-men, are usually going to cross the demographic barrier because we don't look at a male protagonist and say, I can't relate, I'm not going to watch that. And I feel like the other way around doesn't happen as often. Or like I said earlier, there's that little thing in the back of your mind that like, oh, I'm not going to like that. And like you don't think about it further. But I feel like that is a lot of the issue as well.
As a guy, I've definitely had that moment where I like go to watch, like read a shoujo premise and it doesn't have like any like fantasy or hook, or it's just kind of like based in like reality. And I was just like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to relate to this, but I'm like, well, I heard it's good and I'm curious, so I'm going to just go through it. And then I just watch it and then it's good. And then I'm like, okay, I'm in it.
You're like, okay.
Yeah, I was talking to one of my friends who's kind of like, I want to give shoujo more of a chance, but I'm generally not into romance. And it seems to him that like a lot of them are romance. And I know from very limited experience that there are like non-romance ones out there. But for like, you are the self-appointed expert. For me, I have appointed you the expert. What do you think would be like a good series to recommend to them that's like, hey, this is not a romance set in like, normal our society romance, that the mental picture they probably have of shoujo? Like, what would you recommend to them to check out?
I mean, I would say the one I always go to first is Natsume's Book of Friends. And I do think a lot of people don't think it is a shoujo specifically because, first of all, there's a male protagonist. Second of all, there's no romance. But I would say it's quintessential shoujo with the themes of like empathy and like caring about others and like helping people out. But yeah, I would say that's like the one I would say is like non-romance. And then to me, it always just depends on how much they mean by I don't want romance.
Yeah.
Because like in some regards, it could be like, I don't like romance-focused series. I don't want to read something where it's only about romance. Because then it's like, okay, Natsume's. But then if they're just like, I don't mind romance, but I don't want it to be the central theme. I'm like, okay, here's Yona. Like, it just kind of depends.
Yeah, because like if someone says like I don't like romance, it doesn't mean you're gonna like not recommend them Full Metal Alchemist or something. You know, it's like still there, but it's not the focus. So I think that makes a lot of sense.
And sometimes I do also think when people say they don't like romance, they're just for me, it feels like I'm being put a barrier into them not wanting to get into shoujo, and they're like, okay, give me something with no romance then. And like there are people who don't want romance, and no discrediting to them, but like I do get a lot of that. Okay, then give me one that doesn't have romance, and it's just kind of like, now this feels more like a test rather than actually wanting a recommendation.
It's like prove the shoujo, and it's like maybe no. Yeah, I know what you mean. I think because I've seen that a lot too, where people are like, oh, well, like, I just don't want to watch romance, but then they end up watching a romance at some point or another. But like, I know at least for like some of these examples, they're like very genuine, like, I want to get into it, but I just don't know like where to start kind of thing. But I have been looking forward to Natsume's Book of Friends for like 5 years now. It's probably like my most anticipated series at this point. So I'm very excited for that. But I am excited to see what it has in store. I think it's just really interesting, especially I never fully put into mind the like unisex romance appeal of like Kaguya and so many other popular series, but I feel like they're not that different from shoujo or josei romance I've seen. Are you kind of a fan of those? Like, are you like Kaguya-esque series?
So the thing is, I used to be a really big fan of Kaguya, and then I read really far ahead in the manga, and then I just felt like it kept going, so I ended up just being like, okay, I got enough out of this series. I'm done. And then I wasn't really able to finish season 3 either. I don't know if it was just how the anime was paced or something, so I kind of fell off it on that respect as well. But I did used to be a really big fan of it. But like other than that, I feel like most shonen romance series that I like don't have an anime, because a lot of the ones that get anime feel more targeted towards like a high school boy. Which is like great for them, but I do still wish that even if there was like unisex series, that they would give, you know, girls something to watch as well. I know like many people felt very put off by Dress Up Darling. Some people feel put off by Nagatoro, which I would say is very understandable.
Yeah. I think I don't know if this is the same case for you, but I feel like you can really tell the difference between like who are they making attractive and desirable in the actual show. I think like part of the reason like using Kaguya, for example, like works for me is because I think they put enough effort into making Kaguya seem desirable from a male perspective, but then also Shirogane from a female perspective. Like he has like redeeming qualities that are really attractive and relatable, that aren't just like guy is here. And I think that's something that's like a big focus, and I think I can definitely feel that disconnect when it's like, okay, if I'm watching this romance series, I can see why the girl's really attractive, but like, why would I find the guy attractive in this series? And I think that could lead to a lot of like disconnect.
And I think there is a big trend right now in the romance series that are coming out from that demographic of being like, I'm the shy little quiet boy, and I'm a loner, and I want to keep to myself, but oh, this hot girl, she won't leave me alone. She keeps bothering me. And it's just like, Okay.
That's actually what some people were accusing Dress Up Darling of being, but we had like talked about it a few times, and we kind of like thought that the main character was kind of nuanced enough, like that he didn't fall into that, you know, like he had a personality. He just was just like similar to that demeanor, but not like bland, you know.
Yeah.
Kind of.
No, I don't think Dress Up Darling really falls into that regard. I've only read the first volume, and then I was kind of like, oh, I can't continue this. But I thought Gojo was an interesting character. I think the fact that he's like shy and quiet just has to do with his interest in his hobby and being like kind of like reserved and not wanting anyone to find out. But I don't think Dress Up Darling falls into that. Mostly my qualm with it is just the fan service of a child.
Yeah, I think it definitely starts off really strong with the fan service, especially in the beginning, and I think it kind of calms down a bit, but it's still like a part of it. That's one of those shows where I liked it, and I kind of surprised myself that I liked it, but I can see kind of both sides of the complaint with it. But I think it's also kind of like unfairly grouped into the like I'm just gonna call that the genre of like shy boys just getting bothered by hot girls. Why does this keep happening? Like
so wholesome. But I also liked its representation of cosplay. That was pretty cool too. And I found some of my female friends found that relatable, and that's why they enjoyed it as well. So, also quick question, Colleen. Have you, and I'm pretty sure you've gotten this question before, have you read or watched, well, mostly read Berserk?
Berserk? No.
Okay.
I will never.
Never? Okay.
I will never.
Curious to hear, is it just the type of content, like that's not your thing?
I'm not into very graphic depictions of things. I would say the last thing that I was into that had any sort of graphic nature was Game of Thrones, probably.
Yeah.
And I really fell off that train. I thought everything I've read or seen after that was just like, oh, this is just too much. And it was too much in that show, but I was like, oh, this is so cool.
No, I feel that.
Yeah, and if you're not enjoying it, what's the point? But the reason I bring it up, and it's not because, you know, you've probably heard everyone and their mother, you know, praise Berserk to the high heavens and say how good it is and all that stuff. But the reason I bring it up is because I was interested, like I found it interesting when I found out, like through like one of the interviews with the creator long ago, that he was actually inspired by Shojo when he was writing Berserk, and he kind of incorporated Shojo elements into like some of the main like relationships in Berserk. So that's why there's like in a certain arc, like without spoilers, like towards the beginning arcs, that's why there's like a lot of like tender like care put to like the relationship, and like a lot of introspective like kind of moments that really help flesh out the main character, like, and you know, his the people that are close to him. I'll just put it that way. Yeah,
I've definitely heard that as well. I think I put the quote from the interview in one of my videos. I think it may have been on Shoujo Manga, the What is Shoujo?
Okay.
So I've definitely seen that interview, and I do think it's fun to point out sometimes when people who like have "Thank you, Miura" in their bios and they're trashing on Shoujo. It's just like, well, hey, your favorite series wouldn't be the same without Shoujo. So
someone pointed out, it might have been you, it might have been someone else on Twitter, but they're like, you know, Miura will reference that like he was inspired by like Devilman. And then he's also inspired by the Shojo series. I have to look up the name of it. But people will check out Devilman, but they won't check out the Shojo series. And it's like, this is an inspiration for the like emotional ethos of the series. And it's interesting to see that, like, I don't know, the bridge exists kind of still, even when it's like this thing exists and was put into something you love.
Yeah. I think Rose of Versailles is a one you might be thinking. Yeah.
There's another one, Kazu something. I'm gonna look it up.
Kazetoki no Uta.
That might be it. I'm gonna look it up, but definitely Rose of Versailles, and then that one, I think.
Yeah, it's a very classic. I think it was one of the first like technically BL series that was made. I can't remember who made it.
Okay. Kazetoki no Uta, 1976.
Yeah.
Keiko Takemiya?
Mia, yeah.
Okay. I'm like, okay, this is in my brain somewhere. Yeah. Yeah, they have a lot of influence on a lot of different series, and I've seen a lot of people say that like those two have like made manga kind of into what it is. Like those were some of the series that really changed the industry. So
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting to see. I think I have found, at least in some groups, that people are definitely more willing to check out series that are like Shoujo, Josei. And I think I was wondering if you think with the popularity of like Fruits Basket coming out and kind of setting this precedent where, full adaptation, a movie prequel coming out, do you think we're going to see kind of a shift at all, and maybe other series are going to get more consideration? Or do you think it's kind of like that's kind of lightning in a bottle, that's kind of it?
I think it could be a mix of both. Right now we are kind of seeing a lot of smaller series getting like announcements at the very least. What I'm seeing the biggest increase in is light novels and manhwa shoujo. Because I think this next season there's one called Kokyu no Karasu, which is a light novel, and Bibliophile Princess, which is a manhwa, I'm pretty sure. But there have been announcements for like shoujo and josei series that are romance that I would say are like very unisex from the shoujo and josei side, but they are much smaller series. So I'm surprised that those are the ones that got picked up. One of them is called Ice Guy and Cool Female Colleague. It's getting a digital translation from Comic-Key right now, so it is available in English.
Okay.
And then the other one is called Loving Yamada at Level 999, and that's kind of like a Wotakoi-ish type series. Yeah.
My stuff.
And then what else? There's a Sacrificial Princess and the King of Beasts, which is coming soon as well, and that's more like the fantasy shoujo series that I'm surprised we don't have more of.
I am very surprised because I mean, there's so many isekai series that are like in this fantasy setting. You would think that would kind of overlap a bit. But...
Yeah, the one that I'm like super surprised that never got an anime or anything was Colette Decides to Die, which is it's not technically an isekai, but it's a fantasy with like, I don't know if you heard that ambulance, I'm sorry. It's like it's a fantasy series with like Greek mythology in it. Just a lot of cool like world building, a lot of cool like they can fly up to the heavens and go like hang out with the other gods, but we don't have it in English even like as a manga, and they never made it into an anime, but it was like it sold pretty well. So I'm forever confused about that series not getting an anime.
What's this full title again?
Colette Decides to Die.
Colette Decides to Die. Okay.
It's one of my favorite series, so.
Wow.
I could also just be biased.
I can't believe we could have gotten better Danmachi and we didn't. How could we? I'll never forgive them. Yeah.
So is this like one of your top 10 of all time, or is it like your top one?
It's definitely not my top one. That's Chihayafuru. But I would say it's probably in my top 10. I can't remember where I put it in I made a video for my top 15 manga, and I don't even remember half the series that I put it in by now. But yeah, it's definitely up in like the upper echelon.
Gotcha.
That's cool. I saw your video on your top 15, which is why I know that some of your favorites, but what other favorites do you have just like that come to the top of your mind that might not be you don't have to order them, don't have to rank them?
Okay, so Chihayafuru, obviously. Kimi ni Todoke is definitely up there. One of my favorite coming of age series. I definitely think for that one, people give it way too much flack because they've only watched the anime. And the anime is good, but I feel like it paced it very slowly. So a lot of people are like, oh, the love triangle, it's so slow burn. It's like, no, if you read the manga, they get together not even halfway through the series. So
yeah, and that's good.
Yeah. Haikyuu is in there. One of my favorite sports series.
Awesome.
We stand.
And then Seven Seeds and Basara from Yumi Tamura.
I have heard the tragedy of Seven Seeds, unfortunately. Yeah. That looked like it got absolutely massacred. But
yeah. We don't. I made a whole video on it, but we don't talk about it. Got my frustrations out.
Yeah, that seems brutal because it's like half of the battle is like getting an anime adaptation, and then you get like the worst anime adaptation, and it's like
yeah.
Yeah.
Especially when you don't have an English manga to be like, oh, don't worry, just read the manga. But no, you can't even do that because people are like, this is just an anime only, and you're like, no, it's not.
Okay. Well, here's a question. For non-manga and non-anime, actually, what shows are your favorite?
Oh.
This is just curiosity. You don't have to be an expert here.
I would say my favorite TV show has always been Community.
Okay.
Nice.
Like one of my favorite shows.
Nice.
Goodness, I haven't watched TV in so long. So like I'm like struggling to even think about TV shows. I think the most recent one that I watched was Normal People on Hulu.
Okay.
That was a really good show. It's based off a book, and I read the book too, but I liked the show a lot more.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I can't think of much else right now. Community is always the first thing. I'm like, Community. I love it.
That's a great pick.
It is. All right, we'll bring you back into the shoujo realm.
Something I know about.
What do you kind of want to see just like more of in general? Like manga, anime, just kind of, I mean, we talked about, tropes are just kind of, they exist in each series, not inherently good or bad, but I guess just like something that you're interested in that you would like to see more of.
While I'm not like a huge fan of like psychological series, I think bringing that back into shoujo is something a lot of people like really miss in the first place. I mean, I see posts about it all the time. People want more like dark romance back into shoujo, and I think sometimes it was done really well and other times it just wasn't done well at all. But I definitely do think we are missing tonally more mature, darker kind of romance series that we used to get with like Mars and Drowning Love, where there's like a little bit I'm trying to think of the word here. There's a little bit more to it than just good, wholesome romance. Because I feel like when we go too far into, oh, this series is so wholesome, it's more like people taking it as a guidebook for like, this is how a relationship should be. And it's like, there are good things about that, but also I'd like to read a story. I'm not trying to put myself in this person's shoes. I just want to read a good story.
Yeah, we want the tea.
Yeah. I think a shoujo that's doing that really well is A Condition Called Love. It's mixing both of those kind of together very well because it is darker at moments, but it is still like a good relationship for the most part. And I think that blend is what we need a little bit more of.
Yeah, I agree. As evident by the Nana background, I don't think anyone should model any relationship after a Nana relationship.
Exactly. But the story is good.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Spicy.
Yeah.
So you don't like psychological. Any particular reason? Is it because you
No, she does like psychological.
Oh, she okay.
I'm like, it's not my favorite. I'm not like seeking it out. But I don't hate it. But it's just not like something that I like look for.
Yeah, you don't gravitate towards
it. Gotcha. I see what you mean. I misheard.
Does psychological I guess that inherently implies a darker story versus like just a story where like in typical shoujo you kind of get to explore the characters' feelings, how they feel on the inside, versus psychological where they kind of go deeper with that. And
I think just like when they throw like really kind of messed up stuff at you and you're just like, for me personally, I'm not great at handling reading stuff like that because then it like really messes with me. So I try to stay away from stuff like that just for my own health purposes.
Gotcha.
There are series that I think handle it in a way that it's not like they're just trying to depress you. And those are like series that I'm okay with, but there's some that they want you to be depressed and they like don't care
Yeah.
Like, they don't care if they don't give you happiness, any happiness in between. Like, it's just some lighthearted moments would be nice every now and then.
Yeah, I know of a few of those.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any kind of like hot takes that you are scared to reveal? Because you
Ooh, hot
say,
takes.
yeah, just like they don't have to be the hottest takes, no cancel, but or if we won't get you canceled, we will get canceled, but just any kind of hot
Yeah,
takes.
you can blame us.
Yeah, just blame us.
They conned me into this.
Yeah.
Goodness. I don't know if I have anything that's like a hot take. The one thing that I guess I always say for like a hot take in like the shoujo community is that I don't want anime reboots of series we've already got animes for like 20
Okay.
years ago. So like
Okay.
I see everyone saying, "Oh, we need an Ouran High School Host Club reboot." I'm like, "No, leave it in the past. We got a decent anime adaptation. We don't need another one. Like, let's give that possibly to something else." Yeah, I mean, I don't, like I said, I'm not usually annoyed by a lot of things, and I feel like sometimes like my own personal opinions are hot takes to other people. So I don't know if it's like a hot take or not.
Yeah.
It's just my opinion.
So, yeah.
We'll let you know
Okay.
as you reveal them. Actually, really quick. So, do you think people, for example, would want an Ouran remake, or they're clamoring for that because they're not like being exposed to, for example, as many shoujo that you're currently reading? Because like you're reading a lot of the current stuff, you know what's good.
Yeah.
Maybe they don't know like how much good there is. Like there's a treasure trove, you know. That
Yeah,
hasn't been adapted.
absolutely. I think a lot of people hold on to the nostalgia of like the early 2000s shoujo because we haven't gotten new shoujo to be like, "Oh, I want more like this." So they're just like, "Oh, I want more like what I already have watched like 10, 12 times because there hasn't been anything else coming out like that since." I would say Ouran is very special in the way that it does things. It's like a parody, and we haven't gotten too many shoujo parodies like that since from actual shoujos. I mean, Gekkan Shoujo Nozaki-kun, I would say, is probably the closest, but it's a shonen series.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say like when it comes to like people being like, "Oh, I want something like," oh goodness, I can't even think of some shoujos anymore. "I want something like Kami-sama Kiss again." I'm like, well, I've read like 12 things like this that I would have liked to see adapted but never did. So I definitely think that's part of the case. And also just why a lot of people don't seek shoujo out either. Just because they're like, I have mine that I like and I have liked, and I don't need to look for anything else. So...
Gotcha.
Yeah. Do you think it also might be part of like the like people they're like, I want a new Ouran, but like there's nothing inherently wrong with the Ouran we have. Do you think it's kind of like it's too old for some people where they're like, oh, these older series exist, I don't want to go back and watch older things?
Yeah, I think there could be a bit of that, but with Ouran, I feel like it's still not entirely in content, but like in animation, I would say it still pretty much holds up. It's made by Studio Bones, I believe. So like they've always been pretty good at adapting series, and that one doesn't look old. I guess
agree.
Compared to now, it would look old, but
I agree. I think it holds up, and I think you browse Netflix and it comes up. I don't think it doesn't pop up, and I think like, oh wow, that was made like a while ago. It doesn't really register like that. So I agree. Yeah. I think that that's like a very good, like potentially hot take, but not offensive hot take, because we have like a mini series going of like hot take battle royale where we like it's like us and our guests, and we're like, what are your hottest takes? And we like anonymously reveal them and have everyone vote on like the worst hot takes. So we've had
reveal who owns the worst hot take.
Yeah, you have to own your hot take, but I don't think yours is not battle royale tier, as in like no one will get offended. So I think that's a good one. But
I need to know your guys' most hot takes then.
I'm out of hot takes.
I hang out with-
I can no longer be opinionated.
You know, this is like, I'm in the same boat. This one, it's not really shoujo related. This is the one that I am reminded of as a hot take, but like you said, I'm like, it is just my opinion. I just hold it, and then I'm told it is a hot take. But I guess it's just like my Grave of the Fireflies indifference. Because it's kind of like what you said, where like, I feel like it was kind of a case of like, they're showing me a lot of sad, depressing things, but I'm not connecting to it. And I feel like they're just trying to make me depressed. And I'm like,
yeah,
I know that this is based on real life and this happened to people, but I'm just not, I'm not doing it. I'm not playing the game for this one.
Yeah, I know what you mean. That was definitely one that was just like, let's make you sad.
Yeah, and I'm down to be made sad a lot of times, but I feel like sometimes when they're so in your face about it, I'm like, you know what? I'm just not going to be sad today. Thank you for playing. Like,
yeah.
Nice try.
We do technically, now that I think about it, have a representative hot take for the show that we always wear proudly. We just kind of mention it now and again, which is we both do not like I Want to Eat Your Pancreas.
I've never seen it, so I can't say.
That one is probably the master of we want you to be sad. So I don't know. I tell people they should watch it and make up their own mind on it, like all fairness to like watch it. But
yeah,
if you got other things to do, you're doing great. You have enough things to do. It does not need more time spent on it.
That one's a movie, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's probably why I've never sat down to watch it, because I just, for some anime movies, I'm just like, I don't really feel like watching something for an hour and a half. I'll just stick with a show.
It is really funny how it's like sometimes the mental idea of like sitting down and watching a movie feels so much like heavier than the actual action of doing it. Like,
yeah.
I will sit down and watch like 3 episodes in a row and be like, oh yeah, that was fun. It's like, that is a movie length or like getting towards it.
You get those breaks in between though.
Yeah, true.
Well, I also think it's because when you think of the movie, you think of it like as a lump sum. So you're just like, well, it's this whole, like, you're not going to pause the movie most of the time. You're going to have to sit through all of it versus like the episode. You could just like, just a little more. I can keep going. I need to know what happens. It has the built-in cliffhangers to keep you going. But that's the nice thing about manga, though, since you read like a lot of manga, Colleen, that like manga is very easy to just kind of read at your own pace and kind of like pick it up, put it down, pick it up again. You have a free 5 minutes, read a few panels, and that way you don't have to commit to like an hour and a half with a movie. So
and I do think the chapter by chapter for online reading too is really nice. Where I don't have to I don't feel like I have to read the entire volume all at once, and I can just read like 1-2 chapters. That's always really nice too.
I feel that. I have a slight manga related question. I'm not sure if you've heard the Haikyuu news that like they're essentially going to adapt the rest of the manga into 2 movies. Like 110 chapters. So it's not looking good. I'm sure it'll be like great production values, but it sounds like a lot of the character moments that I'm sure we both love are probably going to get cut a bit. But as you might know, you probably have some friends too who are like, oh, I just read the anime for this. I don't want to go jump into the manga. What is your recommendation for people when you're trying to recommend, like, hey, I know you like this anime of this, but this manga experience is just as good, if not better?
Yeah. So, like, how do I get people to read the manga of an anime that they really like?
Okay. Especially if they're not inclined to read manga.
Honestly, I'm just like, hey, the manga's great. You should read it. I can't really like get people to do something that they're not going to do anyway. So even if they don't like the manga, don't like reading manga, I'm just like, it's good. You should read it.
Yeah. I'm totally guilty. I'm like, my shirt just says the manga was better, so
I'm definitely one of those people sometimes. Guiltily, I am one of those people sometimes.
Yeah. I've been on both sides where I'm like, I just want to watch the anime, and you hear manga readers sharing their opinions, and sometimes you're like, I really don't care. And then I will completely turn around for another series and be the manga reader, like for the unsolicited opinions, where I'm like, hey, you should read the manga for this. So I switch up on that every day. But I think it's kind of an unfortunate situation, I think, for some Haikyuu fans where I jumped the gun at the end of season 2. So I've been pretty much like a manga reader just as long, if not more, than I was an anime watcher. But like, I think it's a great experience. So I've been trying to bully my friends kind of for their own sake, because I know that they love the series. They're just like, I love it so much as like an anime. I don't want to jump the gun for the manga. And I'm like, I did that and I'm happier now. Just do it. So
yeah. I did the same thing. I think it was season 3. I finished season 3 and I'm like, I need to read this series.
Yeah.
I just ended up reading the rest of it. But yeah, it is really sad. I feel like if they're gonna have to cut, they don't have to cut like the big things, but they're gonna have to cut a lot of the small things. And I really am hoping it's not the thing that I think it's gonna be.
Yeah.
I don't want to spoil. So
I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Because I feel I feel like if it's the thing I think it's going to be, that would be detrimental to ending the series.
Yeah, I agree.
It's a big part of the end, and I think it's a big character growth for a certain character. So
I agree, and it's so hard to communicate. Well, I mean, everyone who's watched and enjoyed Haikyuu like knows that like the character moments are the bread and butter of the series. Like, you know, there are probably not as many volleyball enthusiasts as there are Haikyuu character enthusiasts. Wow, you know, but that's so hard to communicate too. And then it's like, I think you can kind of sell anything with like the characters are good and the character moments and the character dynamics are good, which is why I think it's like there are so many series where you're like, I'm not interested in the subject, but then you're like, okay, but the characters are great, and then you get in and you're like, okay, yeah, I agree. Like,
and then you end up liking the subject too.
Exactly. And then you're watching volleyball at the Olympics, or you're watching like karate Queen and King championships, which I have seen. Like, I've seen some of the live ones posted on YouTube. So.
Oh, it's so cool. It like how the anime got it so well, I think is really cool as well, because when I was watching the anime, I was like, oh, this is exaggerated. It's like, you know, like how sports anime is. It's like over the top exaggerated. And then you watch a real match and you're like, oh, this is like exactly like the series. It feels like the same.
The only difference is you're not like in their mind. So you're watching from a distance and you just hit them, like slap the floor really loudly. And you're like, okay, I cannot move that quickly. Good on them.
Yeah.
Haikyuu is one of the few that like is really grounded, because like you're saying, a lot of sports anime have known to like go over exaggerated, but that's like what's special about Haikyuu. So
I'm trying to think of if there's any series. I'm trying to think of trying to bully Onimaru into watching Chihayafuru, but I think we've done that.
I gotta watch Natsume's Book of Friends too. So that's on the
I think PTW. It just got a dub as well, if that like inclines anyone more. I found that out after I put out my video about Natsume's. Everyone was like, oh my gosh, they just dubbed this. I can't wait to watch it. I'm like, a good timing on my part then.
I was kind of curious about a bit more of like the YouTube side. You know, I think there are a lot of anime YouTube creators who are kind of covering very similar popular series. Are you hoping that there's more kind of covering like shoujo and like more in like your demographic? Because I think you've made like a huge splash and shown that there is like very much an audience out there who wants to hear about these series and like, you know, everything going on in this like subset of the community. Are you kind of hoping to see more of that, or like hoping to see some kind of change in anime YouTube?
I definitely would love to see more of that, because the only reason I started a YouTube channel was because a lot of people were like, hey, Colleen, I like your TikToks. Have you ever thought about doing a YouTube? And I was just like, it's not for me. Like, I can't talk for more than 3 minutes. Like, this isn't for me. And then the more I was trying to find manga content creators that like made essay videos about shoujo, I was like, oh, this is like not a thing. So, and then I would get more people being like, hey, have you ever tried YouTube? So when I took my break from TikTok, because I was just kind of burnt out on making content every single day, I was like, you know what, let's make one of my TikTok videos into a video.
Mhm.
So I just wrote that script out about shoujo manga magazines because I feel like it's something that not many people realize is that it's the same sort of serialization as like shonen series have.
Yeah.
So I put that one out, and I guess it did pretty well. And then I did my shoujo anime one, and I was like, oh, okay. Like, oh, it was crazy. It was only my second video, so
That's awesome.
yeah, it overwhelming at the same time.
That's so cool to see.
So
But
now,
yeah.
as you're doing videos, like with your channel, are you approaching it more like do you see yourself like kind of like on a mission to just be like, I need to like spread, you know, the love for shoujo and the representation and kind of like, you know, kind of tap into the community? Or are you just kind of just doing videos like, and you're just having fun making the videos themselves, and you're just like, hey, this is just what I'm into, and I'm just gonna kind of keep going?
It's definitely a mix of both. I've always been someone who's been like, oh, we need more shoujo representation. People need to like shoujo more. But at the same time, I just love certain things. I love certain series, and my boyfriend doesn't really like read the same things that I read. He kind of fell off of reading manga recently, so I can't talk to him about certain things.
Mhm.
So like then I'm just like, okay, let's just talk to myself. I'll write out a full script of 18 minutes on character dynamics of a certain series I like. But yeah, so it's kind of a mix of like, I want other people to enjoy these series, and especially because if I talk about them and people find out about it because of that, we might get more like shoujo manga licensed in English. So that's like part of it. And then the
Yeah.
other part is just, I don't know how to shut up. So
No, that's great. I think we're all doing better because of that.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I guess I didn't know that you came from TikTok, not because I don't go on TikTok. I'm just uneducated on TikTok. So, do you think, are there any like interesting like differences between like the TikTok anime fandom and like YouTube anime fandom?
essay videos for sure. Essay
Yeah.
videos do so bad on TikTok. I used
Yeah.
to make so many essay videos on TikTok, but they never did well. So I would only do them just because like I had an opinion on something and I wanted to like talk about it.
Yeah.
The videos that do better over there is just like, hey, I found this manga. It's pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or like power scaling everything.
Yeah.
I feel like those are the big ones on TikTok.
I saw so many funny like meme power scaling videos posted to
Yes.
like Twitter where I'm like, this is just an amazing display of content. This is just something. But my youngest sister is like 15 and she got into anime, not from me, of course, because I'm old and lame. She got into it from TikTok, cool
Yeah.
and young. So one of the series that she started watching, like I think within her first 15 anime was Nana, and it's one of her favorites now. And I'm wondering if it's like, is there kind of like better representation for some of these like more like shoujo series on TikTok than on anime YouTube? Because I know if she was checking out anime recommendations from YouTube, she would not have found Nana.
Yeah. I would say that Nana got really, really big on TikTok in the last year.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that could also be why we ended up getting the Ayazawa art exhibit this
Mm-hmm.
year, as well as like the resurgence of all of her stuff in like magazines, like art images and stuff like that, and then probably the scale figures as well.
Yeah.
I definitely think it is because TikTok really like blew that series up, along with Fruits Basket, I would say, is another one that really blew up because of that. Kami-sama Kiss maybe, although it was very popular already.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, all of these series were popular already. I feel like people just found it because of TikTok. And then manga-wise, I would say A Sign of Affection, which is a shoujo from Kodansha. That one really blew up over on TikTok as well. I feel like that's like everyone's kind of like shoujo romance that they point to for manga now.
Interesting. That's interesting to hear. But
yeah, TikTok's really good at spreading the word.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Certain series like just pop up out of nowhere. You're like, what?
Yeah. Yeah. It's been like a cool way to actually also find restaurants. TikTok. I mean.
Oh, really?
Not Shojo.
Yeah.
Yeah, because just stuff just pops up. But back to video essays on TikTok. Wouldn't the way to make that work though just be splitting it into parts, like leaving it off on a really like good bit, and then just be like, go to part 2 to watch the rest? Have you tried that?
I haven't, because I don't really do them anymore because I have YouTube, but maybe that could work. I feel like I've seen more people complain about people who do like part 2 like story times. So maybe like part 2 essays would be better, but the part 2 story times, I see so many people making fun of them because they kind of meander for the most part, and then at the very end they tell the story and they're like, check part 2 out for more.
You can tell when they're dragging those out because because they have so many cuts in their own video, and then they're like, go to part 2, and it's like, you could have fit this into 3 minutes now.
But I'm not much on like TikTok myself. I'm just like vicariously on TikTok through my wife, because she'll just be constantly on and I have to like listen to it in the background. And then like she'll like stumble upon some story and she doesn't know I'm listening, but then I start to like listen and then I get like really intrigued. And then it says, all right, go to part 2. And then she's just not interested and she'll just go to something else. And I'm like, no, go to part 2. What are you doing? I need to know.
I feel like that's probably the the more universal experience for videos like that. Is just, I don't care.
It sounds like what you need to do is a video essay, but power scale it against another video essay. Or just power scale it against an anime character.
You know what? That's a good idea.
I saw one that was like the Classroom of the Elite main character. And I haven't seen Classroom of the Elite because I've been out of high school for like almost 10 years. So like I can't go back to the classroom. So I don't even know anything about this main character, but they were power scaling him with Johann Liebert from Monster. And it was the best video of all time. It was untouchable, but it wasn't also like the character, like in his normal teenage form. It was the kid version of him and the kid Johann. So it was a masterpiece. 10 out of 10 accuracy. I don't know anything about this character, but obviously beats Johann Liebert easily. Yeah, so that's why I can't go on TikTok.
Sorry, I don't know if my thing keeps cutting out, but
no, I think that was me.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
That was probably I think it's me. Yeah, they're trying to shut me down for my TikTok complaints.
Your takes are too hot, Shaw.
Yeah.
Colleen, do you have any other hot takes that you'd like to share with the class?
Well, I did think of this while we were talking about it the last time, and I was just not going to say anything.
No, we remembered.
No, you can say it. You go for it. This is a safe space for hot takes.
Your views are our own.
I put this on Twitter, actually, and I get a lot of shit for it every time I say it, but I just don't understand how Wotakoi got so popular.
Okay, this is fair, but I also get it.
I'm actually interested in this conversation. I think I stumbled upon that tweet, and I was like, oh.
I gotta go back.
I haven't heard this.
I ended up deleting it. Okay, so...
Oh, no.
It wasn't from anything on my end. People were very respectful. They're just like, oh, I like it for this reason, or oh, I get why you don't like it. The reason I deleted it is because it was just another case of Shojo Twitter wanted to have fun, saying their hot takes, saying their opinions, and then, a bunch of the dude bros coming in and being like, oh, Shoujo's actually really bad at romance, and if it's not even good at the thing it's known for, then it must be the worst demographic. And then we just had a bunch of trolls and a bunch of people who were getting to it. And I felt partially responsible for people finding it because it only had 10 quote retweets when I found it. And I was like, oh, okay, the person really wanted to like have a fun discussion. So I was like, okay, I'll add it in. I have like a amount of followers. I'll let other people find it through me, and then all that happened. So I deleted it, but it wasn't because of the opinion that I had.
Oh, that's always sad. I feel like there's so many times when you're just having like a fun discussion or like like joking slander back and forth, and then people take it too seriously, and it's like you're ruining everything. Stop doing this. But
always a fun day on Twitter.
You never know what's gonna happen. but I guess I'm getting like brain damage in my green screen from from like actual thinking of Twitter. But yeah, I think that's like an interesting discussion because it's like I love Wotakoi, but I haven't caught up, but I'm pretty sure they kind of like do something I don't like with the main romance, and I don't think they end up developing it as much. And it seems like such a clear cut, like you got not a 10 out of 10, but you got a home run right here, like just go for it. And then it's like, no, we're gonna not touch on that. And so I think that's probably worth criticizing, but it's also one of those series you could see being like, you know what, I just don't vibe with it, and it's like more than understandable.
Yeah, I think my biggest critique of Wotakoi, and I get why other people like it, because the fact that it is about adults who like anime and nerd things, I understand why people like that, and I'm never gonna like criticize someone for liking the series. I mean, I wouldn't criticize anyone for liking most series, but yeah, I feel like the romance was just nothing. Like it turned out to be nothing. Yeah. And if it's a romance series, then I would like there to be romance.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then on the other end, it was just the comedy wasn't very funny to me either. I don't know if because I read the manga and I watched the anime, but I just feel like the way things were timed it left too much room between the joke and when you were supposed to laugh before they gave the punchline. And I was like, this however they timed it, I just didn't think it worked comedically. And then also I'm just not a fan of the side couple either.
Okay, that'll probably do it, because I hear so many people who are like, oh, I love the side couple more than the main couple, and then it's like that's probably carrying their enjoyment of it, so that makes a lot of sense.
Okay. Yeah, this side couple always pissed me off. I was like, why does he treat her like that? And why does everyone love it? It never made sense to me.
Toxic.
Yeah, like no one, I don't see people say he's like a toxic male lead in the way that I would see if a teenager did that. It would make more sense for like a teenage boy to be like that, but like a full-on adult who's been dating his girlfriend for like what, 10 years?
Yeah.
I just thought that was so strange.
Yeah, that makes sense. I gotta catch up and see what's up. I mean, I definitely get that. And I had that same gripe when I was watching like the anime, where I was like, the timing of the joke doesn't line up. But then when I read it, I think it clicked for me. But
yeah,
I gotta check. I got the volumes like hanging around. Gonna go peep that. But it was like one of my favorite romance comedies, and more comedy romance. I think that's a big thing. It's like there's a lot of comedy romances where it's like 90% comedy and 10% romance, and I'm like, I would like a bit more 50-50. I would like 50-50 of this, and we're not getting that, because it's like you get the romances where they either take forever to get into the relationship and then they don't cover it, or they get together at the beginning but then they still don't actually develop them that much, and they're just kind of like, well, they're together, so like, you know,
who
there
cares?
It is. Yeah, exactly. And it's like, I care. That's why I'm here.
Yeah. Yeah, I only watched the anime, so maybe I didn't get like the full kind of scope of like what you're talking about. Like maybe that's more in the manga, at least with the romance being nothing. Because I feel like it was just sort of like only teased in the anime, and it was like they were starting to like develop something there.
I thought the romance in the anime was fine, honestly. Yeah. In the manga, I just kept reading, and it was the same. And I was like, okay, they've been together for how long now? And they're like, still.
You need development. You need
I need something.
What am I reading for?
Yeah. I think my new kind of Wotakoi-esque series that I've gone onto, that I don't even know if we'll get a second season. It's My Senpai is Annoying, which a lot of people thought was gonna be another like Naragoto, Takagi-san, like teasing whatever. And this one is like not even remotely like that. It's just like adults in the workplace, and the main girl just looks like she's really young because she's really short, but they don't do any of the like weird lolly-esque jokes. It's just she's like naturally short, and she's trying to overcompensate for being like young and new in the workplace. So she tries to act more mature than she is, but everyone's like, no, like it's okay to need help. Like you're new at this company. So that one's cute, but I worry about it kind of falling into a similar path of just being like comedy, and then like maybe there will be romance in like a million chapters.
That's why you stick to the anime. Never need to know more. Don't get burned.
But I need to know. I need to know, and then I read the manga, and I'm like, nothing has changed.
I didn't need to know.
Yeah.
Hindsight.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, Colleen, really quick, have you checked out Blue Period?
I watched the anime, but I've never read the manga.
Okay.
I've heard it's really good though. The manga is.
Yeah, manga's like really in depth. I have not caught up, but like I did read like a good chunk and like 26 chapters or something. It was really, really good.
Yeah, I guess my other hot take would be something about Blue Period.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Yes.
Get them going.
I feel like Blue Period is too much like depression is art, and I'm just like, okay, but art can be fun too. I feel like they focus too much on like the struggling, troubled artist, and like I don't know. I've always been someone who like finds like I'm a photographer, so that aspect is probably different than like a painter, but I've never been like so like upset about something with my art that I'm like, I don't know. That's my
the tortured artist is a stereotype for a reason.
Yeah,
so.
I feel like for a high school kid, it was just a little too much. Like maybe if he was like an adult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
He kind of is in that weird phase of like leaving high school, transitioning into college, and kind of really trying to figure it out. Especially because he like started like so late, like found what he loved like really late, so it puts more of that pressure of like I need to catch up. Like what am I doing? You know, so. Yeah.
No, I can see why people like it. Just for me personally, because I can't resonate with that.
Yeah,
I was watching it. I'm just like, why is he so upset all the time? Like I understand sometimes, but
yeah, no, it's honestly better to have fun with your art. So if you can do that,
like a little bit of fun, just a little bit.
A little bit. That's kind of all I got.
That's all I had too.
Yeah. Colleen, did you have any questions for us? Anything you wanted to kind of touch on that you feel like we didn't kind of get around to in regards to Shoujo, Josei, anime, anything else?
Anime, manga,
anything? I guess if you guys want to talk about Josei more, because we mostly just touched on the Shojo side. I feel like a lot of people always want me to talk about Josei, but I'm not as like knowledgeable on it, but I do know a little bit. So yeah. Josei wise, I can answer whatever questions you have on that front too. Yeah.
Like when I went to look up, like again, the Josei that I've read or watched either, I was like surprised at how little I kind of have. I was surprised that one of them was Kids on the Slope. So I forgot that was a Josei. So that one. I was surprised to find out Bunny Drop was a Josei. Like, oh, okay.
Unfortunately,
Have you watched and read Bunny Drop? I was going to ask that.
I was very fortunate to have never watched the anime and then think, oh man, I want to read the manga, and then just be completely scarred for life.
Yeah.
Fortunate I did not experience that.
Yeah. So that's good.
Yeah.
We don't have to talk about that one. Other two, I never read or watched the anime, but I watched the live action adaptations. One is Nodame Cantabile, if I pronounce that right, and the other one is Goku-sen. So those. Yeah. So those I know from the live action, and then the only other ones I have on here is Wotakoi, Happy Mary, which is really good, and apparently A Silent Voice is a Josei. So I've watched the movie. So. That's what I was told. Is it not?
It's not. It's a shonen. I think it was published in the same magazine as Noragami, maybe.
Okay. Oh, interesting.
Okay, cool.
I could be wrong though
about that one, so I wasn't. Let me see. Oh yeah, that's kind of all I've got in the shoujo camp.
Yeah.
I mean, not shoujo. Sorry, Josei.
I think the thing about Josei is it's really hard to categorize in the first place. It doesn't really have a certain thing that defines it as not shoujo, because in Japan as well, they don't really have Josei in the same way that we have it in America. So Nodame, technically we call it a Josei here, and I would never correct someone for saying it's a Josei, because I would call it a Josei too, but I found out recently that the manga actually won an award in the Shoujo category for Kodansha.
Okay.
Same for like Princess Jellyfish. Everyone would consider that a Josei here, but over in Japan they call it a Shoujo. So there is kind of that weird line.
One of the conversations I constantly see is people who are like, you know, Nana is a shoujo, but it feels like a josei because it's older and they have more mature themes. And I've always been personally frustrated with that line of thinking because it's kind of like you're kind of limiting what you consider a shoujo. Also, it's like not really your place to determine what demographic it is, even though because like the content is more mature. Like we've all seen shoujo with like more mature content, but do you think that like do you have like similar frustrations with those kinds of conversations of like kind of like people just, you know, categorizing things based on like their own experience and idea of like what should be in certain, you know, demographics?
Yeah, I mean, the Nana one is absolutely one that has always kind of like irked me.
Yeah.
Because I feel like it comes more from a place of, no, shoujo is just young girls, all no substance. I feel like it comes from a place of malice rather than a place of like actually looking at Nana and being like, these things make it feel more mature. They're just kind of like, oh, it's not like a shoujo I've read.
Yeah.
And then like the shoujo they read was like Maid Sama, which like
you
can't really compare the two.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm fairly certain that Nana, it was one of the series. No, was it? I'm not as familiar with Ayazawa's works. But I think Nana was one of the series that won in the shoujo category, and then Paradise Kiss is considered to be more of the josei.
That's what I've seen.
That's what I've heard,
yeah. But both of them, I believe, were published in the same magazine. But
interesting.
I think shoujo and josei, they're very blurred in that regard.
Could it be like, I'm just theorizing here, like the intent? So like in Nana, it still focuses on more of like a coming of age sort of like dreams and aspirations and sort of like them sort of coming into their own. Whereas, I don't know, I didn't read Paradise Kiss, but it's already kind of set with like adults that are kind of like sort of, you know, already in that sort of type of mindset versus like coming into their own.
It definitely could be. Since I also have never read or seen Paradise Kiss, I can't say for sure. But josei in Japan is definitely categorized as like adult women dealing with adult women issues and like working women dealing with the workforce. So in that regard, like I said, I can't say on Paradise Kiss, but I feel like Nana definitely focuses more on interpersonal relationships for like a kid. Because I don't think either Nana is really like at the adult stage of their lives. They're still like kind of kids figuring out what's going on, what to do next, how to be the person that they want to be. And I feel like for that, Nana is definitely more shoujo in that regard.
I can see it.
It still has that like sense of wonder, sort of, versus like the jaded, you know, kind of resigned.
Yeah.
I thought of this like very bad comparison where I was like a lot of Nana kind of reminds me of like a better version of a lot of like Gossip Girl kind of like esque tropes and things of like, you know, going to the big city and like going and experiencing life. And I was thinking like, yo, we watched some like weird shit when we were younger kids. So like and as I said, my sister probably, I mean, she's watching Nana and it's like, she is in that shoujo age range. So it's kind of like, I think sometimes people forget like what they watched as kids that could be appealing to them. So they're kind of like, I don't know, rose-colored glasses on their own path. So I think that makes sense. But
yeah, and I definitely think Nana is more consumed by people in their teens rather than like adults.
Yeah.
I mean, adults now are probably reading it who
Yeah.
like are just now getting into anime and manga, but
Mhm.
I would say for the most part, the people I know who have read or watched Nana were like 16, 17 when they
Yeah.
first found it. So
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
I just
it
thought
makes
of
sense.
this, but maybe it's similar to, I don't know, like a few years back, I think I was still in college or maybe even younger. Like I got into the show Mad Men and like I liked it. Like I was able to like sort of appreciate it, but I always felt like a disconnect. And like I had like a boss that was like, he was already like middle aged and he was just like, he loved the show. And when I told him that, he was just like, "Oh yeah, you'll appreciate it when you're older. Like you'll really get it when you're like my age." I was like, "Oh." And I guess because like the setting was like they were all like really fully formed adults, like you know, already kind of in that age range that are in the workforce and kind of are focused on that. Whereas I was still in college, still figuring out my life, so it sort of wasn't completely relatable. Like
yeah,
so at least for me. So maybe that's kind of similar to that with the how Josei is different from Shoujo.
yeah, definitely. The ones that are like considered to be Josei, would be like Descending Stories, Kids on the Slope, oh, what's the other one? Those are the two that I can
Honey
think
and
of right now.
Clover.
Honey and Clover is actually another one that technically won a Shoujo award.
Oh, interesting. Okay. That's cool.
Yeah, it's really, like I said, very blurred line. I hardly ever would like correct anyone on anything. It's just, it's very interesting to me on like what they've categorized over in Japan on like what's shoujo and what's josei that to them. So I think it's usually just more based in reality, if anything, and there's less like of the fluffy shoujo feeling every now and then.
Like
we actually have Tom here in the chat saying Paradise Kiss is a coming of age story too. I would say it's less mature than Nana actually, but both tackle very similar stuff. Okay, things just got really blurred.
We were having this conversation on like women in the workforce. I'm just looking at Polar Bear Cafe, one of the Josei ones, and I'm like, yes, this will finally tackle the
working
themes.
Women.
Yeah, working women, all of the polar bears. Let's go.
Yeah, it's very confusing. It all just kind of, it's confusing.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just feel like people wanting something to be a josei that is a shoujo, or conventionally considered to be a shoujo even in Japan. I feel like it just comes from a place of being like, oh, this is better than the thing that I don't like, so I'm trying to other it.
Yeah.
So I can be like, this is actually good, and it doesn't belong to the thing that I like to think is bad.
Yeah.
So
it's like the seinen elitists that sometimes like roll up, and they're just like, yeah, seinen better.
Exactly.
Peak.
Yeah, that's exactly how I think of it, and it's like, then you bring out that K-On is a seinen, so it ruins everything, and it's like, there we go.
And then the K-On fans are like, what?
Yeah, I think that was kind of everything I had on my end. I think it's good to thank you for bringing that up, because I guess Josei gets kind of forgotten because it's such a blurry line, and we even forgot it in our podcast talking about it. So
yeah,
I guess now I can chill Rakugo Descending Stories to both of you.
I need to keep reading it. It reminded me that I have it like open on my phone, and I just haven't been reading it.
I've that with so many. It gets kind of bad. Yeah, but that one's a really good one. Yeah, I was trying to think of any good closing notes, but is there anything that any opinion or any thought you wanted to express that you normally can't because you're making like longer form video essays now that you just want to throw out there?
Yeah,
Shojo is good.
Yeah,
you should read it. It's great. There we go.
I agree.
There you go. Okay, sounds good. All right, so thank you so much, Colleen, for joining us. This was an awesome conversation. If you ever want to come back in the future to discuss more shoujo, josei, or any sort of drama in the community, feel free to come on.
And if you remember more hot takes and want to submit them to battle other hot takes, we'd love to have you.
All right. If I ever have anything that I'm just like, oh, okay, this will get people mad.
That's it. We'll definitely shout it out.
And we know we linked your YouTube and Twitter below. Is there anywhere else people can find you?
TikTok, it's Colleen Carney Photo, Carney. Although I think they've changed how the usernames are displayed. I don't know if you can find me by just my username anymore. So if you can't find it through that, it's just Chihaya Furu Colleen.
Nice.
Okay.
Nice.
Sounds
Nice.
good.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. This was so much fun. I have
course.
literally 20 tabs open of series you have mentioned. I'm not joking. There's 20 tabs. I've been taking notes, so I have a lot to check out in the future. Hopefully our listeners do too. Yeah, I'm excited. But thank you again for joining us and for talking with us for 2 hours about the wonderful world of shoujo and josei.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
I really
Yeah.
appreciate it.
And we really like what you're doing with your channel, with the community. It's like really cool, like that you kind of have like this whole brand that you're building up. So like you're doing the Lord's work, you know, kind of repping shoujo. So keep doing what you're doing, honestly.
Thank you.
And besides that, guys, thanks again for joining us live. If you can make it, if you couldn't, obviously you can check the VOD, the stream afterward, and let us know what you thought, you know, in the comments. Any questions for us, any questions for Colleen, we'll relay it to her. You know, like the video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe if you haven't already. Besides that, we firmly support Josei and Shojo here, so that's it. We're just